Do you all feel that the military strategies listed in The Art of War by Sun Tzu are difficult to apply? That's because you haven't deeply understood and flexibly utilized them. In reality, many people have applied the ideas from The Art of War and thus achieved great success. Below, I will share 3 examples of business successes that applied the military thinking from Sun Tzu's Laying Plans. For those unfamiliar with The Art of War, you can revisit my previous videos and chapter analyses of The Art of War for a better understanding. Story 1: Microsoft Word's domination of the Chinese word processing software market. Sun Tzu said, "Appear capable when you are not, show usage when you don't use it. I can fight, but I pretend I can't. I use this tactic, but I pretend I don't." In the early 1990s, most computers in China were equipped with a domestic word processing software called WPS, developed by China's Kingsoft Corporation. The biggest advantages of Chinese companies often lay in cost and price benefits. Word, developed by Microsoft, had inherently high development costs, which increased further after localization for the Chinese market. Therefore, for a considerable period, Word was consistently defeated in the Chinese market by WPS, almost completely eclipsed by it. However, in a very short time, WPS was almost entirely ousted from the Chinese market, and Word nearly became the standard software on personal computers. Why did the situation reverse so abruptly? Was it because Word suddenly overtook WPS in terms of cost advantage? Of course not. Word could never beat WPS on cost. Microsoft began to implement a very effective strategy, tacitly permitting, even encouraging, the influx of pirated versions of Word into China. Can WPS, even with its low cost, compete with piracy? Therefore, in that period, if you went to buy a computer, the seller would often ask you, "Do you want me to install Word for you? It's free." Who wouldn't be happy with something free? WPS, along with almost all other domestic word processing software companies, quickly vanished from the industry. However, once the market was under Word's control, Microsoft announced a new policy. They began to enforce genuine software certification. Did Microsoft truly lack the ability to control the spread of pirated software? In fact, it was quite simple. Microsoft only needed to implement a small certification program to completely eliminate all pirated versions. It wasn't that they couldn't, they chose not to. The key was to use piracy as a tool, effortlessly defeating their main rival. This achieved a victory without a fight, truly embodying the principle of winning without shedding blood. A classic case of appear capable when you are not, show usage when you don't use it. Story 2: Audi's strategy to counter BMW 3 Series in the Chinese market. Sun Tzu said, "Entice them with gain, take them by confusion. I clearly plan to attack you nearby, but first, I start a maneuver far away. I clearly plan to attack you at a distance, but first, I draw your attention nearby." In warfare, the attacking side, besides the main attack direction, often has supporting and feint directions. The purpose of these is to tie down and attract the enemy's forces and attention, coordinating with the main attack direction. The same applies to corporate competition. Competition between companies is often not just a single product or market, but involves multiple products and markets simultaneously. If you can make the competition between products and markets work together organically, forming a combination strategy, it often produces excellent results. A classic example is Audi's strategy to counter the BMW 3 Series in the Chinese market. The BMW 3 Series was touted as the first luxury car produced in China. BMW had high hopes for its launch in China with the 3 Series, aiming to break into the Chinese market with this model. To BMW's delight, the market response was very optimistic. Before the 3 Series was even launched, it had already garnered over 7,000 orders. The launch of the BMW 3 Series was bound to significantly impact Audi's market in China. Audi devised its counter-strategy. Leveraging its strong production capacity in China, it planned to launch the Audi A4 before the BMW 3 Series hit the market, setting a base price of around 400,000 renminbi for the A4. This pricing was quite unreasonable, even higher than the Audi A6 at the time. Why did Audi do this? BMW has never considered Audi as its competitor, always viewing Mercedes-Benz as its true rival. Since BMW never saw Audi as its peer, BMW's pricing for comparable models had to be higher than Audi's. BMW used higher prices to signify its higher value. For BMW and Audi, this had been the norm in international markets for years. So, naturally, BMW set the base price of the 3 Series over 400,000 renminbi, referencing the Audi A4. This brought about a problem. The Audi A4 was already unreasonably priced in terms of cost-effectiveness, making the BMW 3 Series even more so. In contrast, the cost-effectiveness of the Audi A6 seemed extremely reasonable. So, during that time, the Audi A4 never really fulfilled its mission. It couldn't. But the Audi A6 sold exceptionally well. The key was, due to BMW's pricing error, which exceeded consumer expectations, the entire launch plan for the BMW 3 Series was thrown into chaos, shattering BMW's hopes of breaking into the Chinese market with the 3 Series. In military terms, there's a warning to be cautious in the first battle. If the first battle is lost, subsequent ones become much harder to win. Thus, to this day, in the Chinese market, BMW is still constrained by Audi. Looking at this battle, where was the brilliance of Audi's strategy? On the surface, it seemed like Audi was focusing on the A4, but in reality, it was protecting the A6. The Audi A4 was essentially a fighting brand launched by Audi to counter the BMW 3 Series, a classic feint. Through this strategy, Audi successfully concentrated the breakthrough in brand value enhancement on the Audi A6 and, more importantly, thwarted the launch plan of the BMW 3 Series. In the theory of dynamic competition in business, there's a well-known strategy called multipoint competition. Multipoint competition is considered a highly effective offensive strategy. In this strategy, a company often launches a feint in one market or with one product to tie down and distract the opponent, while actually launching a real attack in another market or with another product. In fact, the side implementing a multipoint attack often enjoys greater market maneuverability compared to an opponent with only one direction of attack. Therefore, when initiating an attack, competitors should not have just one direction or product. There must be strategic coordination between products and directions. With such a combination strategy, it becomes much more effective to mobilize the opponent. When the opponent is caught off guard and confused, launching a real attack can be extremely effective. Story 3. The Battle of Ham Sausages between Shuanghui and Chuandu. Sun Tzu said, "Entice them with gain, take them by confusion. Lure the opponent with minor advantages and attack them by creating chaos." In military terms, there is the concept of an ambush, where a small force draws the enemy into terrain unfavorable to them and then the main force launches a sudden attack, defeating the enemy in their moment of confusion. In competition, you can also use clever strategies to lure your competitors into markets that are actually unfavorable to them, thereby changing the competitive landscape. A classic example is the battle over ham sausages between Shuanghui and Chuandu, both located in Hunan, China. They were direct competitors, and for a long time, their strengths were comparable. However, suddenly, Chuandu faltered. As Chuandu's PR director put it, they inadvertently fell into a trap carefully laid by Shuanghui. Here's what happened. The two companies were in fierce competition, a characteristic of which in China often leads to a price war. Shuanghui initiated the price war first. The main ingredient of ham sausage is meat, along with starch, MSG, cooking oil, etc. The best way to engage in a price war for such companies is naturally to reduce the meat content. Normally, the meat content in ham sausages is about 85%, and the price is around 1.3 to 1.5 yuan per piece. Shuanghui started by reducing the meat content to 75%, dropping the price to 1.2 yuan. Both companies had spies in each other's enterprises. The news of Shuanghui reducing costs to wage a price war soon reached Chuandu. Naturally, Chuandu couldn't just watch Shuanghui conquer market share this way. They had to follow suit, dropping to 75% meat content at 1.2 yuan per piece. Chuandu's response was quickly known to Shuanghui. Shuanghui then further reduced the content to 65%, pricing it at 1.1 yuan. Chuandu wouldn't back down and immediately followed. Shuanghui continued to reduce, and Chuandu kept pace. This went on and on. After several rounds, the meat content in the ham sausages dropped to 15%, priced at 0.5 yuan each. At this point, the ham sausages were almost inedible. Previously, the main component was meat, giving the sausages elasticity, and they would bounce back when bent. The later versions essentially turned into doughy lumps. Many people, after buying and biting into one, spat it out, lamenting that it no longer tasted the same. It was then that Chuandu suddenly realized the problem. Shuanghui heavily promoted their cheap ham sausages through all advertising channels. However, in actual operations, every 10% reduction in meat content corresponded to a 10% reduction in the planned production volume. So, by the time the price dropped to 0.5 yuan, this product line only accounted for 10% of Shuanghui's total production, while 100% of Chuandu's products had been reduced to this low quality. This meant that among every 10 ham sausages, only one from Shuanghui was of inferior quality, whereas 100% of Chuandu's were inferior. Consumers quickly stopped buying Chuandu's ham sausages, and distributors stopped stocking them. Realizing the problem, Chuandu hurriedly began producing high-quality ham sausages again. But once a brand collapses in the market, rebuilding trust is extremely difficult. Eventually, in the high-end ham sausage market, Shuanghui captured 90%, while Chuandu dominated 90% of the low-end market. From then on, Shuanghui firmly pinned Chuandu in the low-end market, preventing any turnaround. Shuanghui used the tactic of enticing with gain to gradually lure Chuandu into the unfavorable low-end market, trapping them and breaking the stalemate in competition. George Soros once warned, "The history of the world economy is a series of dramas based on illusions and lies. To gain wealth, the method is to recognize the illusion, get involved in it, and then exit the game before the public becomes aware of the illusion." Soros was talking about investment, but as we can see from the above examples, this warning is equally pertinent to market competition. That concludes the 3 stories. If you know of any other business success cases that applied Sun Tzu's art of war, feel free to share them in the comments section. If there are good cases, I will also seek your opinions and include them in my future videos. Thank you.